The Dark Urge, the mysterious playthrough that sends you spiraling down a mind riddled with amnesia and psychopathic tendencies. Will you resist the urge or embrace it? In this video today, we're going to discuss the Dark Urge origin and if it's worth it to play in Baldur's Gate 3. One of the biggest draws to this origin is the story though, so we will not be discussing spoilers. I'll maybe address certain things like, hey, if you choose X, then expect Y to happen, but I won't go into the details because that's what makes this a very strong narrative origin. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos so you can see if it's the right one for you. So with that being said, let's discuss the Dark Urge. So this is a playthrough that can go one of two ways. If this is your first time playing, then I think it's an amazing take on the game. You're going to find out some really awesome bits of narrative that aren't even talked about in the other origins because it's unique to the Urge. You'll also shut down portions of the game that you'd otherwise interact with. So I'd say if you think you're only ever going to play this game once, I'd go with the Dark Urge. It's got such a cool narrative and it links all three games together in a really fun way that I don't think you'll want to miss. If you definitely think you're going to play a second playthrough, then play the Dark Urge second. This is what I did, and I think it's awesome because the game unfolds in a different way. Paths that I was used to taking advantage of are now closed. So it forces me to adapt and learn how to overcome obstacles without maybe certain individuals, items, vendors, quests, whatever it is. It's just a really refreshing way to restart the journey I just played through. Lastly, you can resist most of the game-changing Dark Urge scenarios and have a relatively normal playthrough if you want. They require ability tests, but you can simply save scum through them if you fail. So if you want to know if you can just simply do that, that is an option for you. But that's the down and dirty of the video and probably the biggest question you had, if it's worth playing the Dark Urge. So if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down and begin or resist your murderous rampage. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Each one of those things does help me out in a huge way. I currently have 89% of unsubscribed viewership on the channel, and that's a metric I'm trying to change this year, so every little bit helps. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters about the timeline and the description. If you need help with any other subject in Baldur's Gate 3, check out my playlist linked below and at the end of the video. But let's get started here on should you play the Dark Urge origin in Baldur's Gate 3. So loading into the game, we have the Dark Urge origin. Now, unlike the other origin characters, you can actually go custom with this. You can actually choose whatever you want to be, whatever race, whatever class, whatever subclass, whatever it is. You have that full bit of customization at your disposal here, right? So we can just kind of swap this around. And before we really kind of get into things, I think the real question comes down to what class should I select, or maybe should I not select as the Dark Urge? And by and large, pretty much everyone can manage the Dark Urge just fine. If you want to resist it, like I said, you can pretty much save scum your way through resisting it if you want. I would really tell you though that unless you plan to become an Oathbreaker Paladin, don't play a Paladin Dark Urge, because there will be points in the game that your character does not have a decision of whether or not you murder someone. And depending upon your subclass, your oath here, right, your tenet, you might break a tenet. I believe devotion is don't murder someone. And if you do that, then okay, you go become an Oathbreaker, and then you got to pay 1,000 gold to countermand being an Oathbreaker. And if you're an Oathbreaker, you can't multi-class depending upon how you do it. You can be an Oathbreaker Paladin who has multi-classed, but it's like you can't do the opposite, one or the other. It's a very confusing system. So Paladin as a whole, I would steer clear from if I was playing Dark Urge. If I was playing a cleric with a very specific deity in mind and trying to kind of go for a very lawful good, or at least some form of good playthrough, I'd probably not do Dark Urge again, because there's going to be a point in the narrative that you murder someone without your control. It's just part of the narrative of the Dark Urge. So if you have a problem with those things, just know them ahead of time so that you don't get discouraged. I mean, but you can simply play a druid if you want, or a monk. And my personal Dark Urge playthrough is a monk playthrough, but the rest of them are just fine. In fact, even some of the items you get really benefit if you say are playing a Gloom Stalker Rogue Assassin. The very first item you'll get once you meet your butler, that's the only thing I can say without kind of spoiling it, is really, really good for the rogue. So these are just some things I wanted to address because a lot of people probably have a question of, oh man, am I going to be all right playing a Dark Urge wizard? Yeah, you're going to be totally fine. Sorcerer, Warlock, Monk, Fighter, doesn't matter. The only one I think is really you're going to struggle with is Paladin, just because of the nature of resisting the urge and how it could possibly break your oath if you didn't plan to be an Oathbreaker Paladin. And again, too, if it doesn't fit the RP for your character, you know, Monk, even though Monk is kind of a neutral character, I guess maybe it's more like lawful neutral, kind of falls on that like good side of the neutral spectrum. You can definitely be an evil monk, right? No problem at all. But a lot of your monk flavor text kind of skews more towards the good side of things. Same thing here with Druid as well. Ranger's flavor text is like very like aloof and like I am in the forest, whereas Barbarian and Fighter is like more braggadocious and like let's throw down punk. So every single class does have specific flavor text options that maybe are certain roleplay kind of styles, if you want to keep that in mind. And the last thing I do want to bring up here is that with the origin of the Dark Urge, you have a set background of the Haunted One, which gives you medicine and intimidation skills. So keep those things in mind when it comes to selecting your class, because that means maybe you won't have the proficiency of, say, insight and persuasion, which I usually always recommend from a min-max standpoint when it comes to background. I think it's Guild Artisan. So if you were thinking to yourself, okay, well, I'll pick up one of those from my background, you are locked into the background of the Haunted One as the Dark Urge. Let's jump now into some actual gameplay portions of the Dark Urge. So loading into my camp, we can see there is a scene of gore at my feet. And don't mind this graphic artifact. For some reason, that tent does not like having blood on it. But right here, someone's been killed. And this is what I was talking about, where you don't have a choice. This individual is going to get killed. It just happens as part of the narrative of the Dark Urge. Now, this will be someone that you will meet in the Emerald Grove. And if you don't meet them in the Emerald Grove, it is an NPC that the game generates to be killed. And that's a very light spoiler situation there. And this is what I want to talk about here, is the kind of outlook, or the pros, I guess you could say, and the cons of the Dark Urge itself. Because the narrative of the Dark Urge is amazing. It's very fun. You're going to find something that's going to link you to all three of the Baldur's Gate games. And it's probably, I had seen like, I don't know, it was probably like one of those bullshit gaming publication websites had an actual article title that was pretty relevant to this. That the Dark Urge narrative feels like the narrative the game should have been. And there's definitely a notion for that. So the pro here is that you get a very strong, amazing narrative that you really get to tap into and have a lot of fun with. It's going to pull you in directions that you won't even sample with a custom or even any of the other origin characters. So it is entirely unique, and it is challenging in its own right because of the fact that it maybe removes certain characters from you, whatever it is. Now, as far as the big con, or I guess maybe the thing that kind of works against you with the Dark Urge, is the fact that you kind of have to manage your relationships and really resist it if you want certain things to happen. Without spoiling anything, if any character you choose to kind of have as a lover, in Act 2, if you choose not to do a very specific route in Act 2, then you kill your lover. And you have to resist one or the other, or both. You have to, okay, I'm not going to take that route, and then I got to resist killing my lover. And any character you choose to kind of make as your lover pretty much runs into that point of the game of like, well, you're going to just murder them. So keep that in mind, that navigating through your relationships with characters that you're eventually going to have like a culminating point of you probably might kill them. I personally didn't deal with that. And from what I understand, you can resist your way through it. So keep that in mind. The game doesn't really try to force you down one very specific path. But there is one thing to keep a note too, is that if you kind of give in to the dark urge and just let it kind of unfold before you, you're going to shut off quite a few quests and quite a few vendors. Take, for example, Damon, the tiefling that you find in the Emerald Grove or whatever. You won't get access to him after Act 1. Take Act 2. Majority of the vendors in Act 2 you won't get access to. And what that means is you'll lose out on items that spawn on those vendors that might be particularly good for a specific build you have in mind, a specific character you have in mind for one of the companions, whatever it is. So those challenge that's innately kind of linked to that. And on top of it, you will lose certain quests, which would also perhaps reward you with a specific item or specific outcome. So those are some of the big cons, and I know I've listed more cons than I did pro, but it's mainly more of a warning. It's me telling you that, jumping into the Dark Urge might be fun, it might be exciting, it might be great, it might be exhilarating, but you will lose certain things if you've already played the game. It's why I've said, if you definitely want to play a second playthrough of this game, it's strongly encouraged, right? In my opinion, I think you definitely should play as the Dark Urge as your second main playthrough, because you've already gone through the game in one route. So this game is this kind of Dark Urge origin is going to force you through a whole different play style, and you're going to have to tap into different vendors, use different companions. If maybe you kill one because if it's your lover or whatever, you're going to have to you're going to do different quests because maybe it's going to completely shut off certain ones and turn on other ones, whatever it is, whatever flips, whatever switches get flipped, whatever that result is. So if it is that second playthrough, play Dark Urge. And if it is your first time going through, like I said before, go with Dark Urge, because I think it's really what links all three games together, and you're going to have a very crazy, unique experience. Like when I encountered this situation, I was doing it on stream. If you watched me on stream, you probably saw my reaction. I was like, holy shit, holy crap. That is entirely different than what I've gone through and played in my relatively lawful good Ranger playthrough. It's just a complete left field, and it's outside of left field of like okay, do you want to ally with us and save the day, or do you want to join against us and kill everyone? It's not so black and white. There's going to be a lot of things that just come out of left field. You're like, whoa, wait, why do I have an urge to kill that thing? So that's really kind of how the Dark Urge plays out. I'm going to jump over now to the Emerald Grove, and I'm going to do a very light spoiler interaction. I'm going to talk to a specific thing, and it is going to cause a Dark Urge interaction. If you don't want to see that, please just skip the next section. But it's one that I think it's circulated quite a bit. I don't think it's not even a story spoiler. It's a separate instance that only happens with the Dark Urge. Only on a little thing. It's like a one-off. It's never going to come back around in my story again. So I want to show you though how the Dark Urge unfolds itself in the game, so you can get a sense of, am I going to be able to stomach this the whole playthrough, or am I going to have to just embrace this? So I'm going to start an interaction here. And if you have speak with animals, you'll actually be able to quote unquote resist this or deal with it otherwise. If you don't, So we're at the Emerald Grove. Here's the main gate. Here's the environs. We just go to the right over here, and you can see there's a little, not a mouse, it's a squirrel. Hey, both rodents, whatever. Come on up over here. The squirrel's going to just get jolly pissed at me. Spoiler warning, it's not gonna end well. God, I made the coolest character though. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Get out!
Yeah. So
the squirrel lunges at your foot and bites it.
Immediately. Now I can say dexterity, kick her. Last words I won't remember. Calm down, I'm a friend. Okay, let's just press this.
You can think twice. Your lustful body speaks its profane language.
That.
Heroic. I was wondering if we'd survive encountering such a
I've never actually done it in the game. I've only ever seen it.
Stare at the body before you. You have no idea what just
Oh my God.
happened.
That is what happens when the Dark Urge kicks in. Had I not had animal speaking, basically just assume the game picks number 3 there for you. I just would have kicked it. I would have just gone completely berserk and kicked it, and everyone would have had the same reaction. And then you can say, it's horrible, I'm horrible, my body moved without my command, keep quiet, it came right at me, my instincts are sharp, daggered things, stay out of their way. So you can embrace this, or you can resist this, and certain companions will be wary of it. If you embrace it over the top from the very start of the game, you might not even get certain companions. If you remember certain points in the game, maybe when you first get Gale, that comes to mind. So just keep this stuff kind of at the front of your brain, because it gets wild. The Dark Urge is a shocking playthrough where you will encounter things like this and a number of other instances where they're kind of out of your control unless you have a very set situation kind of planned. I knew going into that, if I had animal speaking, I would be able to kind of stop it from happening. But if you didn't have animal speaking, you didn't know, you walked in this corner, this squirrel starts talking shit, it gets hit, like literally gets punted. So the Dark Urge is going to be a very different playthrough, but it's going to be very rewarding once you find out more of what the Dark Urge is, how this comes into your character, how it connects to the story, and how this all kind of unfolds before you. Because it is definitely a very rewarding playthrough. That is one that you should definitely play through either the first time or the second time, depending on how you'll be approaching Baldur's Gate 3. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.